Just listening to the music. Welcome Sunday, and happy Sunday to all, and welcome to those watching us from home on Facebook or wherever you are. I invite you to join me in our opening prayer. Divine Spirit, Divine Presence, Divine Spirit, Source of all life, light, and love, we gather here with open hearts and humble spirits, grateful for the gifts of this moment, grateful for all present in this sacred space. May peace settle gently among us. May the energy of compassion guide our words. May understanding blossom in our hearts. We welcome the wisdom of our ancestors, the quiet strength of Mother Earth beneath our feet, and the sacred breath that moves through all things. Let this gathering be held in grace. Let kindness be our language. May we see the divine in each other. And may our time together be a reflection of unity, healing, and love. Welcome to all. Welcome, Spirit. Welcome all that is sacred now. And so it is. Amen. Reverend Jen now. Thank you.
That was a beautiful prayer. Thank you, Lynn. Good morning again. Good morning to our friends online. We're grateful that you're joining us. I love how spirit works, how those unseen forces or metaphysical principles work in our lives. I've shared this before, but as I'm preparing for a talk, I open up and I ask spirit, like, what do I need to talk about? And just as many times I'll have an experience or a conversation or maybe a thought that I know later is going to be a message. And that's exactly what happened for today, for what I'm going to share today. I was having a conversation with a longtime friend, and it wasn't necessarily a difficult conversation. It was heartfelt and soulful, and there was an apology, and forgiveness came up. And they said, "You're always so gracious." So later, as I was reflecting on our call, I wondered what they meant by that I am so gracious. What did they mean when they said that? What does it mean to be gracious? What did it mean to them? What does it mean to others? What does it really mean to me to be gracious? And I knew that I had to answer that question. That's where I had to start. I had to figure out what it meant to me. And I feel also like it was a little nudge from Spirit saying, okay, it's time to maybe add grace to one of your gifts and talents, maybe beef some of it up, polish it up, tune it in to be more gracious or to be more graceful. So a funny side note, when I was growing up or when I was younger, actually up until not too long ago, I was pretty clumsy, pretty accident prone, and I'd trip on nothing, just air, or I'd fall running up the stairs and I'd have mystery bruises or scratches. And my mom would always say, I should have given you the middle name Grace. I should have named you Grace. I don't know if that would have helped. But nowadays, I think I'm a little bit more graceful. And I think it's just as I'm in my 50s, it hurts when you fall or you scrape your knee. So I think I'm a little bit more graceful. So I guess we can start by understanding what the word grace means or how it can be defined. There's power in exploring our words, the words that we use. And now we're in a time of really shortcutting things. There's a lot of abbreviations. We don't even say the full word sometimes, or we're using symbols or or we're using these emojis. And it's really, really important to understand the words that we use and the power that they contain. And we talk a lot about that here at the Home Spiritual Center. Grace from a metaphysical or a spiritual perspective is the divine flow of unconditional love and wisdom and healing, and it moves through us. It's truly a spiritual energy. Grace is a spiritual energy. And it's described, I love this, as an unearned divine favor. Not something that we need to earn through deeds or through good deeds, like many of us were taught, but rather we receive it from being open. We're open and we align to that higher consciousness. And grace flows regardless of merit. It's unconditional. And it's spirit or the universe or God's way of saying you're loved just the way you are. Grace is one of those few spiritual forces that can really reach those places within us, deep within us, that the best of intentions cannot. Grace can open our hearts by invitation. It's not forceful. When we know that we're loved just the way we are, that allows us to relax. That allows our heart to unfold and to open. Grace can be defined as that invisible current that lifts us up when we've fallen, or maybe it softens us when we've hardened, or maybe it forgives us, even when we're not quite ready to forgive ourselves. It's the energy of compassion that goes beyond any judgment. It's the presence of the divine meeting us exactly where we are and guiding us to where we're meant to be. So circling back to being gracious, initially I thought, well, does that mean forgiving? That I'm so forgiving? Does it mean to forgive quickly or easily? We allow others to err and then maybe correct that error. Does it mean that we hold space and grace for this humanness that all of us experience? I've had a few people in my life tell me that I'm so forgiving. And it's more of an accusation, like you're too forgiving. And um, I I tease about this, about being the queen of second and third and fourth chances, and maybe some of you can relate to that, right? It doesn't mean we're chumps. It doesn't mean we're chumps or that we're going to be taken advantage of or that we're going to get hosed in some way. It means we're gracious, and I'm okay with that. When we decide to extend grace, we're really being courageous. We're willing to open our hearts, even at the risk of hurt or pain or damage. So, where does grace fit in with forgiveness? Well, they can be seen as a sacred partnership. Forgiveness is the doorway through which grace often enters. I'm going to say that again. Forgiveness is the doorway through which grace often enters. Meaning, when we forgive, we release that resentment or that hurt, and we open ourselves up to healing. And then grace comes in and fills that empty space or that space that's left behind. And then maybe we feel restored or we feel a sense of peace. So how do forgiveness and grace work together? Well, forgiveness is the act, and grace is the energy that makes it possible. Because grace can empower us and it supports us to forgive even when we don't think or feel like it's possible. Forgiveness clears out all of that junk, any of those emotional debris, any of that spiritual trash. And grace comes in and rebuilds our soul. So forgiveness and grace go hand in hand. Sounds pretty simple, right? Simple concepts? Yeah? No? Maybe? I don't know. Forgiveness can be pretty difficult, right? Often it feels counterintuitive. So we're letting go of something, letting go of pain, even though we're still hurting. Or maybe we're releasing control when we feel the most vulnerable. Choosing peace. Choosing peace when our ego just craves justice, just wants that justice. Forgiveness requires humility. And sometimes the ego fears losing control or maybe appearing weak. And forgiveness can be difficult because we identify with our wounds often, right? That pain becomes part of our identity. And when we release that, sometimes we feel like we're losing an aspect of ourselves. When we forgive, we're opening up our hearts, which can feel risky or scary. As metaphysicians, or maybe spiritual thinkers, we know that, or many of us believe that we have these experiences that serve our soul. And sometimes we call them lessons, right? And this can be sticky when it comes to grace. And what I mean by that is these experiences that are painful, we want to believe that there's a lesson in it, right? We want to believe that there's a lesson. This might not be too popular, but I believe that sometimes there's not a lesson in it for us. Sometimes, maybe, we're just in the ripple of somebody else's experience. So this can be part of grace, right? Saying, I'm going to give myself grace around this. I don't necessarily have to take responsibility in this. That friendship or that relationship dissolved because somebody thought something or somebody felt something. Maybe there's a quiet separation, or maybe there's a big old blowout. Maybe they got what they needed from the relationship or the friendship. And maybe you got to be the teaching angel. Maybe that was contractual. Maybe that was a contract or an agreement that we made before we came here, maybe in the spirit world, whatever you believe, that we're going to come together and we're going to teach each other. And sometimes they're really, really, really beautiful experiences. And sometimes they're really, really, really painful experiences. So where's the grace in that? Grace for ourselves, maybe. Maybe we say, and I've looked at this from every direction, every perspective, whatever the situation was. And I really don't feel like I've influenced the outcome or the situation. Can it just be? Can it just be without fault or without blame? Because that feels like grace to me. That's giving ourselves grace. So I've shared about grace for others and forgiving others, but what about us? How do we extend grace, or how do we bring in or invite grace in for ourselves? Because it's not self-indulgent. We're not doing anything wrong. It's remembering that our soul is untouched by our mistakes or by our past. We learn to accept, and this is the trick, unconditionally. Right? We accept unconditionally, and we bring our forgiveness inward. Bring that inward. We release that grip that many of us have on guilt or shame, regret, and we allow ourselves to heal. That's giving ourselves grace. And remembering that grace empowers us to forgive, not just others, but ourselves. We offer grace for ourselves when we know that our path is unfolding perfectly. We're trusting that journey. Maybe grace shows up for you quietly, or maybe it shows up in powerful ways. Maybe it looks like before you criticize yourself, you pause and then you choose kindness instead. Grace looks like celebrating those small wins as sacred steps, because each step that we take is significant. It can look like saying no when our spirit needs rest. Grace can be sitting in silence and letting our soul speak louder than any of that guilt or that shame or regret. You're gracious with yourself when you speak to yourself like a beloved, like somebody who you really love and you cherish. And when you ignore that inner critic, that inner judge, in fact, just kick them out of your awareness. You're offering yourself grace when you let yourself feel, when you allow emotions to move through you, not controlling them, not trying to stifle them, but just witnessing them. Being gracious with yourself means trusting that your soul knows the way. Your soul knows the way, even when your human mind isn't quite sure. You can decide that you're going to offer or extend grace for yourself, that you're going to carry grace for yourself in whatever way that you define it, whatever feels right for you. Because once you define it and you trust it, that's where the intention sets in. If we say or we think, I'm going to give myself grace, but I don't have a clear understanding of what that means, then we're not going to call in those magical experiences, those divine experiences into our life. Something else that came forward for me when I was thinking about grace was when we say, thank you for the grace. Thank you for the grace. I say it. I've heard many of you say it. And to me, often it means thanks for giving me a pass. Thanks for understanding, whatever it is, I'm running late or I haven't met the deadline. But we often say it because someone has offered us compassion or understanding. And maybe we don't quite feel like we deserve it, but they still offer us that grace. When someone thanks us for the grace, they're recognizing our spiritual generosity. Or when we thank somebody for the grace, we're recognizing that they're being so generous and that they're loving us without judging us. And we're loving them without judging them. We give each other room to be human. Isn't that nice? Ultimately, when we're thanked for the grace, we're being thanked for seeing the other through the eyes of love and not through the lens of the mistake or the error. It's really a sacred compliment. And we don't have to be perfect to bring grace into our life, because we can embody grace in many, many ways. When we practice acceptance, letting go of judgment of others and ourselves, when we are living in grace. Grace flows when we stop needing to be right or maybe control or fix something. We embody grace when we offer forgiveness freely because we deserve it. Because we deserve it. We deserve peace. And we become a channel of kindness. And we can extend that grace and that kindness, even when we feel like it's not deserved. And not just for others, but for ourselves. We receive grace by allowing ourselves to be supported by Spirit, even when we're feeling unworthy. It's accepting love. We're accepting love and healing without any guilt. And we can stay receptive to Spirit by opening our hearts to that divine grace. And maybe that's through contemplation or prayer or meditation. And grace flows through acts of generosity and support. We can practice this compassion when we choose to respond with understanding and kindness. We're not just being nice, we're actually aligning with that divine frequency. It's a divine frequency, and it opens our hearts and it softens our egos. Grace says, you're more than your mistakes. Discover what grace means to you. And when you use the word, find that power behind it. Maybe the power behind it is how you want to show up, how you desire to show up in the world. Like you want to be more gracious in the way of maybe being more forgiving or meeting people where they are. Or you use the word grace as a reminder to be gentle with yourself. Every time we speak the word grace, we're sending out a vibration. It's a living vibration. Grace is actually a high frequency energy, and it uplifts us and it heals us and it harmonizes. And sometimes it's felt as a calming presence, or maybe you feel a subtle shift towards peace, or maybe you feel it in your body just as a warm wave. In sound healing and vibrational medicine, even the phonetics of a word matter. They're important. Grace. So it begins with a soft G and it ends with a whisper like S. Grace, grace. It's a word that flows. It's elegant. It's beautiful and gentle. And saying it out loud can really feel like a spiritual exhale, like grace. So I'm going to invite you to say grace with me 3 times and just notice how it feels in your body, in your breath, in your energy. We'll say it together. Grace, grace, grace. Do you feel that? That's beautiful. So we become a transmitter of that frequency when we embody grace. Each of us can become a vessel of grace. We forgive not because it's easy. It's not easy to forgive, but it is sacred. We speak gently and mindfully. We move in grace and we love freely. And as always, these are suggestions and considerations. There's no particular way. You discover the way. You know, Jerry and I were just talking about this the other day. As ministers, we put a lot of thought into our messages. And in turn, well, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I get to learn a lot in the process. And sometimes, often, we get the opportunity to hold ourselves in grace. We get to hold ourselves in grace. So I don't know the magic remedy or the prescription, the spell, the manifestation for your life. You know what's best. You always know what's best for you. And you get to discover who you really are. And the closer that you get to that answer, the more you really understand and you know yourself. So I encourage you to discover what grace looks like in your life, the ways that it'll support your path. Allow it to move through your relationships, through your friendships, through your choices. Allow it to move through your breath. Let it be the light. Let grace be the light that guides yourself, guides you back to yourself, right back to your center of who you truly are. I have a little short story I want to share before I close. There once was a woman who carried a lantern through the forest of her life. The lantern was lit by her striving, her need to be good, to be right, to be strong. It burned hot and bright, but it flickered often, especially when the winds of shame and regret blew through. One day, she came to a river that she could not cross. The current was swift, and the stones were slick with old stories. She sat down weary and whispered, "I've tried everything. I've done everything. Why can't I move forward?" From the stillness, a soft light rose, not from her lantern, but from the river itself. It shimmered like moonlight on water and spoke without words, saying, "You do not need to earn your way across. You need only to lay down your striving and let grace carry you." Tears fell, not from sorrow, but from recognition. She placed her lantern gently on the ground, and as she stepped into the river, the current didn't fight her. It lifted her up. It held her. It knew her. She crossed not by effort, but by surrender. And from that day on, she carried a different kind of light, not one that she had to fuel, but one that flowed through her. It was grace, and it never flickered. That's sweet. That's sweet. And with that, I'm going to move us into a short meditation. So I invite you to close your eyes and allow yourself to settle in and enter the quiet. Maybe you're placing your hands in your lap with your palms facing up, ready to receive, or perhaps placing your hands softly over your heart, whatever feels best. Let us breathe into this space where grace lives, remembering it's not earned or bargained, it's just given. Feel the presence of something ancient and tender moving through you like light through stained glass. You're not broken. You're not behind. Not too late. You're held in the arms of grace. Let the places within you that ache for forgiveness be bathed in this light. And allow that light to circulate and to heal those places. And let the names you carry in your heart be lifted into compassion and forgiveness. Grace does not insist that you be perfect. It invites you to be open to healing, open to release, open to the mystery of love that forgives before you ask. You are full of grace. You are a vessel of compassion, a channel of peace. You are a living prayer. And let this grace move through your words, your choices, your presence, your breath. When you forget, may grace remember you. So just take a nice deep inhale together, exhaling gently as you feel that softness in your body, maybe in your spirit. And when you're ready, you can gently return, rubbing your hands together, wiggling your toes, opening your eyes or lifting your gaze. Thank you. So we'll move into our offering portion of this morning. Almost said this afternoon. It's almost noon. Almost noon. So we are grateful for whatever you're able to give, whether that's in the form of money. We do need money to support the center and to pay the bills, keep the lights on. And we do appreciate your service and your love and your prayers, whatever it is that you're willing and able to give today. Just place that between your hands and let's just bless it. Just bless that offering, that it will support the Home Spiritual Center in the most perfect ways to allow it to continue on. And know that our gift will also bless ourselves. We say these things to be true. Amen. And as the basket goes around, I'll invite Reverend Lynn back up to the podium.
Hi again. A lot of you, or some of you, may have heard the story about the cracked pot and the life purpose, but I think it's a good story, so I'm going to retell it. There was a woman. Sometimes the story is told about a man, sometimes about a woman, but that carried water on the back, and they carried 2 pots. One pot was a beautiful, new, no leaks, no holes. The other pot had a lot of leaks and a lot of holes. And go up and get the water and bring back to fill it up into the barrel. And it was always a little short because the one leak. And so this went on for quite a while. And the pot that had the leaks spoke to the woman and said, I feel really bad. You work so hard and I always come up short for you. And the woman said, let's go and get the water. And he walked on the path. And while you're walking on the path, I want you to look at the side of the street that you're on. And I want you to recognize every flower, every flower, every flower from here to my home. And you have watered all of those. I planted the seeds, but without your water, they would never have grown. And so your slight imperfection has given me the opportunity to pick beautiful flowers, to share them at my table and with my friends and with my family. Without you, we we wouldn't have the flowers. So a little bit of grace for that pot. I like that story. Now, if you'd like to join me in our closing prayer. Mother, Father, God, as we come to the end of our service, we are thankful for the moments shared, for the truth spoken here, and for the presence of love that surrounds us. Thank you for guiding our hearts, for opening our minds, and for bringing us together in purpose and peace. May the seeds planted here this morning grow in wisdom. May the light that glows within us move out to our community, and may we carry Spirit with us in all we do. Help us to walk gently, to speak with compassion, to live in integrity. Keep us mindful of the blessings within and around us, and may we start our week strengthened by Spirit and connected to the all that is good. And so it is. Amen. And to all of you on Facebook, thank you for joining us. From our heart to yours, have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.